The impossible beginning. The night sky above the colony world of Vera was quiet, filled with the calm glow of 2 moons and 1,000,000 stars. Farmers in the fields and children in their homes looked up with peace in their eyes, never imagining that those same stars would soon bring terror. Without warning, the heavens tore apart. A massive shadow spread across the skies as the alien armada arrived. Hundreds of warships appeared, each one larger than the tallest mountains. Their metal hulls glowed with sharp lights like the eyes of beasts hungry for prey. The people of Vera screamed as alarms rang through the cities. They had heard stories of the alien fleet, the dreaded Charon Armada, destroyers of worlds. But now those stories were real, and their world stood helpless beneath the weight of endless enemy firepower. High above, within the void of space, the Charon commanders looked down on the human colony with cruel amusement. For them, this was not war. This was slaughter. Then something strange happened. A single human warship appeared at the edge of the system. It was small compared to the massive alien vessels. Its armor looked scratched, its engines old, as though it had survived too many battles already. To the aliens, it was almost laughable. "What is this?" one Charon captain growled. "One human ship against us? Are they mocking us?" The alien commanders laughed. Their fleet numbered in the hundreds. Their guns could vaporize planets. Against them stood a single aging human vessel. By all logic, it should have turned and fled, but it did not. Inside the ship, the crew moved with quiet discipline. Their hands were steady on the controls. Fear was in their hearts, but stronger than fear was their trust in their captain. At the center of the bridge stood Captain Elias Rane, a man with sharp eyes and a calm voice. He stared at the endless fleet before him and showed no fear. The young officers around him whispered in disbelief, "Sir, we are only one ship. We cannot win this." Captain Rane's eyes narrowed. "Perhaps. But history does not remember those who run. Prepare the weapons." The crew exchanged nervous glances. None of them truly understood why their captain was so calm. The enemy fleet was powerful beyond measure. Yet there was something in the captain's tone that made them obey without question. In the alien flagship, the enemy commander gave the order to destroy the lone human ship. Beams of deadly energy lit up the void, streaking across the stars toward the small vessel. The colonists below gasped, certain that the human ship would be blown apart in the first strike. But the impossible happened. The ship survived. The alien blasts struck a strange barrier around the human vessel. Energy rippled across its surface, bending light itself. Then the beams vanished, swallowed whole as though the ship had eaten the attack. Silence spread across both fleets. Even the colonists who watched from below fell quiet, not understanding what they had just seen. Inside the alien flagship, commanders shouted in confusion. "Impossible. No ship can withstand that much fire." But Captain Rane only whispered almost to himself, "Now they will see." He raised his hand slowly like a conductor guiding an orchestra. His crew responded at once. The human ship's main cannon began to glow with an eerie blue light. Energy hummed through the hull, vibrating like a heartbeat. "Target their nearest cruiser," Rane ordered. The cannon fired. A single beam of light cut across the void. It was not large, not wide, but it was sharp-focused and terrifying. It tore through the alien cruiser as though the ship were made of paper. The vessel split apart, flames erupting, pieces scattering into the dark. The colonists watching from the planet below gasped in shock. The aliens shouted in panic. One ship, only one, had destroyed a war machine many times its size. Another beam fired. Another alien warship shattered. The laughter of the alien commanders turned to disbelief. They had expected an easy hunt. Instead, they found themselves facing a predator unlike any they had ever known. Captain Rane stood straight, his expression hard. "They think we are weak. Let them learn the truth. Humanity does not break." On the bridge, his crew found their courage. Fear turned to determination. If their captain believed they could face the Armada, then perhaps they could. The alien Armada pulled back, reforming their lines. Their commanders roared in anger, demanding explanations, demanding new tactics, but in their hearts something colder began to spread. Fear, because for the first time in their long history of conquest, the Charon Armada had seen something they could not explain. One human ship, alone in the night, had survived their storm of fire, and not only survived but fought back. The battle had only begun, but already, the galaxy would never be the same. Fire against the heavens. The alien fleet did not wait long after their first shocking defeat. The Charon Armada was not used to hesitation. Their commanders believed that sheer numbers and endless firepower could crush any resistance. A single human ship should have been nothing more than dust already. Now anger burned across their channels. The alien admiral gave the order, "No mercy. End them now." Dozens of warships moved in formation, their cannons glowing with deadly light. They fired in unison, unleashing a storm of destruction that could melt asteroids and tear apart moons. The sky itself seemed to rip as beams and missiles thundered toward the lone human vessel. The people of Vera watched in terror, believing this was the end. No ship could stand against such fury, but the human vessel danced through the storm. Engines roared and the battered warship twisted and turned with impossible speed. It did not look graceful. It looked desperate, reckless, as if every move was the last possible chance for survival. Yet somehow the ship always moved just out of reach of destruction. Explosions lit the void, and firestorms consumed space, but the human ship slipped between them like a shadow. Inside the bridge, alarms blared and sparks burst from the panels. Officers shouted warnings, their voices trembling. "Shields at 60%. Enemy closing from the starboard side." "We cannot take another volley, Captain." But Captain Elias Rane stood calm, his hand resting on the console. His eyes burned with steady fire. "Hold steady," he said. "Let them think they have us." "Let them come closer," the crew obeyed. Their hearts pounded. Sweat dripped from their foreheads, yet not one of them turned away. Their captain's voice carried something unshakable, as if his words alone could defy death. The alien armada tightened their net, ships closing in from every direction, cannons aimed, ready to fire at point-blank range, and then Rane gave the order. "Now, fire." The human ship's main cannon erupted once more. A blinding beam tore forward, splitting into 3 branches mid-flight. The light carved through the enemy like a blade through water. 3 massive alien warships exploded at once, their wreckage scattering across the battlefield. Shockwaves rippled through space, and the other alien ships were thrown off course. Panic swept across their channels. "What kind of weapon is this?" one alien captain shouted. "This is impossible," cried another. But the horror was only beginning. The human ship's secondary weapons activated, small, sharp projectiles that moved faster than light itself. They pierced enemy shields as if shields did not exist. One by one, alien fighters vanished in bursts of fire. To the galaxy, it looked as though a single ship had become the fury of an entire fleet. The colonists below could not believe their eyes. Children pressed their faces to the glass of shelters, watching the human vessel fight like a legend from old stories. Farmers fell to their knees, whispering prayers. Soldiers on the ground clenched their fists in pride. Humanity had always been seen as young, weak, fragile compared to the ancient powers of the stars. But now, one ship was rewriting the truth. On the alien flagship, Admiral Krath slammed his claws against the command table. Rage twisted his face. "This cannot be," he roared. "It is only one ship." But even he felt the chill of fear spreading inside his chest. He ordered the fleet to change tactics. No longer would they fire from a distance. Now they would swarm. Hundreds of alien fighters launched at once, surrounding the human vessel like a storm of stinging insects. They darted in from all directions, lasers flashing, missiles locking on. The sky turned into chaos. Inside the human ship, the crew struggled to keep up. Their shields flickered, the hull shook, and fires erupted across the corridors. The odds seemed hopeless, but Captain Rane leaned forward, his voice a whisper. "Do you hear it?" The crew looked at him confused. "The rhythm," Rane said. "Every fleet, every army, every storm has a rhythm. Find it, and you can break it." The crew obeyed, scanning the enemy movements, and slowly, they saw what their captain meant. The alien swarm moved with patterns, with waves, surging and retreating. "Now we strike," Rane commanded. The ship's engines flared, brighter than before. In a sudden burst, the vessel charged straight into the heart of the alien swarm. It should have been suicide. Yet, as it moved, the ship's weapons fired in perfect timing with the rhythm of the enemy's attack. Every shot found its mark. Fighters exploded in fiery blossoms. Cruisers were cut apart. What looked like chaos became a deadly dance, with the human ship leading every step. The alien swarm began to collapse. Their pilots panicked. Some tried to retreat. Others crashed into their own allies. In mere minutes, what was once a storm of hundreds had been reduced to burning fragments drifting in silence. The galaxy watched in awe. The human ship floated through the wreckage, its hull scarred, its shields cracked but still alive. And more than alive, it was victorious. On the ground, colonists cheered, tears running down their faces. Across distant worlds, hidden broadcasts carried the news. A single human ship was defying an armada. The story spread like wildfire, reaching ears and hearts far beyond Vera. But inside the alien fleet, fear spread even faster. Captains whispered among themselves. Soldiers trembled at their posts. Even Admiral Krath, who had once believed in his people's invincibility, now questioned everything, because he knew the truth. If this one ship could do such damage, what would happen when the full human fleet arrived? The battle was far from over. The Armada still had strength, still had numbers, but the seed of fear had been planted, and fear could be more dangerous than any weapon. Captain Rane looked at the endless stars beyond the wreckage. His face was calm, but his voice carried weight. "This is not their defeat," he said softly. "This is their awakening. The galaxy has never seen humanity's fire, until now." The fear spreads, the wreckage of burning alien ships drifted like broken stars across the void. Flames flickered in silence. Bodies of enemy warriors floated lifeless in the darkness, and the single human vessel moved through it all like a shadow carrying fire in its heart. The Karan Armada had faced countless battles in their long history. They had crushed empires, silenced rebellions, and burned civilizations into ash. But never, not once, had they faced something like this. Fear began to spread. Across the alien fleet, whispers passed between soldiers. "One ship. Only one ship is destroying us," their voices shook. Some refused to believe it. Others looked at the glowing wrecks around them and felt their claws tremble. On the flagship, Admiral Krath stared at the battlefield with fury and confusion. His fleet was still vast, stretching across the sky like a sea of metal. Yet everywhere he looked, ships were destroyed by the same enemy. He turned to his officers. "Why are we losing? Tell me," one officer stammered. "Their weapons, they pierce our shields," another said. "Their defenses, they swallow our beams." And another whispered the words that no one wanted to say. "It is as if they know every move we make before we make it." The Admiral's face twisted with rage. "Humans are weak. They are nothing compared to us. This ship is a trick, technology stolen from some ancient race. Crush them." But his voice could not erase the truth. Fear was spreading, and fear was poison. On distant worlds, hidden broadcasts carried the images of the battle. Smugglers, traders, spies, and wanderers all saw it. Across the galaxy, billions of eyes watched as a single human vessel tore through an empire's armada. Alien civilians gasped. Some cheered in secret. Others shook with terror, wondering what humanity truly was. In dark halls of rival empires, leaders whispered to one another. If one human ship can do this, what happens if Earth sends more? The story was no longer just a battle. It was becoming legend. On board the human ship, the crew worked in silence, their hands moving across controls, sweat dripping down their foreheads. They were exhausted, but determination burned in their eyes. Lieutenant Mara, the weapons officer, finally spoke. "Sir, but why are we winning? This is impossible." Captain Elias Rane stood tall, his eyes never leaving the stars ahead. His voice was calm. "We are winning because they underestimate us. They have power, but no courage. They have numbers, but no will. Humanity survives not because we are the strongest, but because we never stop fighting." His words lit a fire in the crew's hearts. They were not just a ship, they were a symbol. Every shot they fired was not for themselves alone, but for all of humanity. The alien fleet regrouped, trying new strategies. They sent cloaked ships, invisible hunters meant to ambush the human vessel. But somehow the human ship always knew where they were. Its cannons turned and fired before the cloaked ships even struck. Explosions flared in the dark and alien voices cried out in disbelief. Next, the aliens launched massive trap nets of energy, designed to lock down entire battlecruisers. The human ship cut through them with one sharp burst as if the traps were made of smoke. Every new tactic failed. Every move collapsed. The Karan soldiers began to doubt their leaders. They began to whisper in terror. "Humans cannot be fought. Humans are death itself." Even Admiral Krath felt it. His claws gripped the command table. His breath came heavy, and for the first time in his long career, he wondered if his fleet would survive. Still, pride forced him forward. "We will not retreat," he shouted. "We will burn this ship or we will die trying." His fleet obeyed, but hesitation grew in their hearts. Down on Vera, the colonists watched in awe. Children who once feared the skies now shouted with pride. Old soldiers wept, whispering, "This is what it means to be human." The galaxy was changing moment by moment. For ages, humanity had been seen as fragile, unimportant, a small race among giants. But this battle was carving a new truth into the stars. Humans were dangerous. Humans were relentless. Humans were not prey. They were predators. On the bridge, Captain Rane finally allowed himself a small smile. "They are beginning to understand," he said. Lieutenant Mara frowned. "Understand what, sir?" "That one ship is not our strength," Rane replied. "It is only the beginning. What they should fear is all of us." His words sent a chill through the crew. They realized then that this battle was not about victory alone. It was about sending a message to the entire galaxy, a message that humans would no longer bow. As the alien fleet regrouped for another desperate strike, fear rippled through their ranks stronger than ever. Every pilot, every captain, every soldier now carried the same thought in their hearts. If this is only one human ship, what happens when the full human fleet arrives? The fear spread. The legend grew, and the galaxy began to change forever. The last stand of the Armada, the Karan Armada, had lost ships, fighters, and even their pride, but not yet their will. Fear had spread through their fleet like fire and dry grass, yet their admiral would not let them retreat. He knew that if they fled, the galaxy would see them as weak forever. So he gave a final order. Everything. Throw everything at them. The Armada reshaped itself into a wall of steel and fire. Hundreds of warships aligned, their cannons burning with energy brighter than suns. Dozens of carriers released their last waves of fighters. Missile bays opened like the jaws of beasts. The sky filled with death. From the ground, the colonists looked up and gasped. The heavens above Vera no longer showed stars. They showed only weapons, an endless storm preparing to fall upon one human ship. Inside the human vessel, the crew felt the weight of what was coming. Their shields were cracked, their hull scarred, and many systems were failing. Sparks fell from the ceiling, smoke filled the bridge, and every console screamed warnings. Lieutenant Mara's voice shook. "Captain, if they all fire at once, we cannot survive." Captain Elias Rane stood in the center, his coat torn, his face shadowed by the glow of failing lights. His eyes remained steady. "We may not survive," he said softly, "but we will make sure they never forget us." The crew fell silent. Some swallowed hard, others whispered quiet prayers. Yet not a single soul turned away. They were ready to fight to the end. The alien admiral raised his clawed hand. Across the fleet, every weapon locked on the lone human ship. The order thundered through the channels, "Fire!" And the heavens broke apart. Beams of pure destruction ripped across space. Missiles screamed through the void. Fighters swarmed in a storm of fire. The entire sky above Vera became a single wall of death, brighter than daylight, hotter than suns. The human ship charged forward. Engines flared to life, brighter than they had ever burned before. The battered vessel dove straight into the heart of the storm, weaving between explosions, its shields trembling under the weight of endless fire. On the bridge, the crew fought with every ounce of strength. "Shields failing!
Engines overheating!
We cannot hold this course." But Captain Rain's voice cut through the chaos. "Stay with me. Aim for their heart." The ship's main cannon began to glow brighter and brighter until the entire vessel trembled. Power surged through every wire, every weapon, every system. It was a dangerous gamble, the kind of move that could destroy them as well. But there was no other choice. The cannon fired. A single beam of light cut through the storm. A spear of fury aimed at the alien flagship. The beam sliced through enemy cruisers along the way, tearing them apart in bursts of fire. It struck the admiral's vessel with a force so great that the entire alien fleet seemed to shake. The alien flagship groaned, its massive hull breaking apart. Flames spread across its decks and screams echoed through its channels. Admiral Krath roared in defiance. Even in death, he refused to surrender. With his final breath, he ordered the flagship to charge the human vessel, engines burning for a suicide strike. The crippled alien giant turned, dragging its broken frame toward the human ship like a beast refusing to fall. On the human bridge, the crew stared in horror. "Captain, it's coming straight for us." Rain's face remained calm, his eyes locked on the approaching monster. For the first time, he allowed himself a thin smile. Let them come. The human ship's engines screamed as it accelerated, not away, but forward, straight into the path of the dying flagship. The two vessels closed the distance, fire and smoke trailing behind them. For the colonists below, it looked as though two stars were colliding in the sky. At the last moment, Captain Rane gave his final command. "All power to weapons. End this." The human cannon fired one last time. The beam tore through the alien flagship's core, shattering it in a blinding explosion that lit the heavens. The shockwave rolled across the battlefield, throwing alien warships into chaos. The flagship was gone. The admiral was gone. For a long moment, silence filled space. Only drifting wreckage remained where the mighty command ship had stood. The surviving alien captains froze. Their voices trembled. Some screamed orders to fight, others whispered for retreat. But none of them believed anymore. The truth was clear. If their strongest ship could fall, none of them were safe. And then it happened. One alien ship broke formation and fled. Then another. Then dozens. The wall of steel shattered, and the Armada collapsed into chaos. From the ground, the colonists cheered, their cries rising into the night. They had witnessed the impossible, an entire Armada broken by one human vessel. But inside the human ship, there was no cheer. The crew sat in silence, their faces pale, their bodies shaking. They had survived, but only just. The bridge was filled with smoke. Panels were destroyed, lights flickered, and the ship itself seemed to groan in pain. Yet they were alive. Captain Rane stood at the center, watching the alien fleet scatter into the stars. His voice was low, but every crew member heard it. They thought one ship was nothing. Tonight we showed them what one human heart can do. Imagine what happens when the galaxy faces us all. The crew bowed their heads, knowing his words were true. The battle was over, but the war was only beginning. And somewhere in the silence, as the wreckage of the Armada drifted like broken bones across the stars, the galaxy began to whisper a new truth: fear the humans. The galaxy will never forget. The battlefield was silent. Where once the Charon Armada had stretched across the heavens in endless numbers, now only wreckage drifted in the void. Broken ships floated like tombstones, their fires slowly fading into the cold darkness of space. The lone human vessel, scarred and trembling, hung in the middle of it all. Its hull was torn, its shields shattered, and its engines weak. Yet it was alive. It had stood against the greatest fleet of the Charon Empire, and won. Down on Vera, the colonists poured into the streets, tears running down their faces as they looked to the skies. They had expected death. Instead, they had seen salvation. Children shouted the ship's name into the air. Old veterans saluted with trembling hands, and families embraced each other with pride. But the battle was more than just a victory for one world. It was a message to the entire galaxy. Across distant stars, broadcasts carried the impossible story. Traders whispered it in the shadows of marketplaces. Soldiers told it in hushed voices to one another in barracks. Politicians listened with unease in their council halls. The word spread faster than fire through dry fields. An entire armada fell to one human ship. For the first time, alien empires that had once laughed at humanity grew quiet. For the first time, they looked at Earth not with amusement, but with fear. On the alien homeworld of the Charon, riots began. Citizens shouted against their leaders. How could an empire that ruled for centuries fall before a single enemy vessel? The Charon government tried to hide the truth, but the whispers became too loud. The empire's proud image cracked, and doubt filled their streets. In other alien kingdoms, rulers debated in secret. Some wanted to ally with humanity, afraid of facing them as enemies. Others planned to prepare for war, believing this single battle was only the beginning. And in dark corners of the galaxy, rebels and slaves began to dream. If one human ship could bring down an armada, perhaps they too could break free from their masters. The galaxy would never be the same. Inside the human ship, the crew sat in silence. They were tired beyond measure, their uniforms torn, their hands shaking from exhaustion. Some had bandages across their arms. Others leaned weakly against the walls. Yet none of them would forget what they had just lived through. Lieutenant Mara stared out the cracked glass of the bridge. Her voice was soft, almost trembling. Sir, we should not be alive. But we are, why? Captain Elias Rane stood at the center, his uniform burned and his face lined with exhaustion. Yet his eyes burned brighter than ever. He looked at his crew, and then at the endless stars beyond the window. We are alive, he said, because humanity does not fight with machines alone. We fight with heart. We fight with the weight of every soul that came before us and every soul that will come after. The galaxy does not understand that yet, but now they will. His words struck the crew deeply. They were not just soldiers on a damaged ship. They were witnesses to the moment humanity rose from being overlooked to being feared. One young officer whispered, "The galaxy will tell this story for centuries." Rane gave a thin smile. Let them remember. Fear is not what we want, but respect is what we will earn. The ship's engines groaned, flickering as they came back to life. Slowly, the vessel turned away from the wreckage, leaving the field of broken alien ships behind. On the ground, the colonists watched as the ship disappeared into the horizon of stars. To them it was more than just a ship. It was a symbol, a reminder that even in the darkest of nights one light could shatter an empire's pride. And so the whispers grew louder. From one system to another, from one world to the next, the humans are coming. They cannot be stopped. They are more dangerous than we ever knew. The Charon Armada was broken, but the echo of their defeat would travel far beyond their empire. The legend of one ship would spread until every corner of the galaxy trembled at the name of humanity. On the bridge of the human vessel, Captain Rane stood in silence, his gaze locked on the endless night. He knew this was not the end. This was only the first chapter, because if one ship could break an armada, then the full power of humanity's fleet was still waiting, hidden among the stars, and when it arrived, the galaxy would never forget.